What is up, my little pretties? It's your mistress, the Queen of Lions here, and today we are here with a 50th episode of Shadows and Pretties. Now, I am going to sit there and say right now that this is the 50th episode of Shadows and Pretties. I would like to thank you so much for getting me up to just past 1.5k subscribers. If we could get this channel up to 2k subscribers, maybe by sometime this year in 2021, that would be appreciated. So, yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for the support. Even though 2020 was a hard year for everybody, I want to thank you so much for all the support that you guys have given this channel and me for a very long time. So, with that being said, I am going to sit there and, explain, this story who basically is called Little Red Riding Hood. Now, Little Red Riding Hood have been, told in many versions in the past. So I'm going to tell you, before I get on with the dark version and stuff like that, I am going to be going with what most people really do know. Like, what most people really, like, kids nowadays would really know the story. So, Little Red Riding Hood is basically about a girl wearing a red hood and cape, and she takes a basket of goodies these assigned from her by her mother to take them to her grandma's house. She goes and walks down the path towards her grandmother's house, encounters a wolf who basically shows her the way, but of course, he sneakily takes a shortcut to the grandma's house. In some versions, he eats the grandma, but in other versions, he basically puts the grandmother in the closet. And then he disguises himself as the grandmother. So when Reinhold shows up, she said, "Grandma, what big ears you have! Grandma, what big eyes you have!" Or hands, or, it's kind of different every now and then. Like, every version, the phrase is, "Oh, Grandma, what big blank you have," is different. But the famous one at the very end is, "Grandma, what big teeth you have." And that's when the wolf tries to eat Little Red Riding Hood. Some versions he eats Little Red Riding Hood, but other versions, before he could, the woodcutter, the woodsman, basically, chases the wolf away if he stuffs the grandma in the closet. But if he eats the grandma, just the grandma, he basically cuts open the wolf and takes out the grandmother. And in some versions, when Little Riding Hood was eaten as well, he releases the Red Riding Hood and even the grandmother. So some versions the wolf escapes, other versions the wolf falls into a well, and etc. And we all know there's a happy ending in those. So in the very, very early versions of it, it wasn't like that really. So it's a European fairy tale about a big bad wolf, and even its origins could be traced back to the 10th century of several European folk tales. So, of course, there was one from Italy, which was called The False Grandmother, which is best known version written by Charles Perrault. So, of course, the story has been changed considerably. Various retellings of the story. Other names are like Little Red Cap or simply Little Red Riding Hood, or Red Riding Hood, which was actually changed a few times as it went on. So, with that being said, the tale involves a young girl named Little Red Riding Hood. In Purra's version of the tale, she is named of a red hood, cape, or cloak, whatever you guys prefer to call it, that she wears. And the girl walks through the woods to deliver food to her sickly grandmother, wine and cake, depending on the translation. And in the Grimm's version, her mother ordered her to stay strictly on the path, when in Purra's version, that wasn't the case. So a big bad wolf wants to eat the little girl and the food in the basket, so he secretly stalks her behind the trees, shrubs, and patches of little and tall grass, and then he approaches Little Riding Hood and tells him where she was going, and he suggests that girl to pick some flowers as a present for her grandmother. So which she does, and in the meantime he goes to the grandmother's house and gains entry by pretending to be her, then swallows the grandmother whole. In some stories, he locks in the closet, like I said before, and waits for the girl disguised as the grandmother. When the girl arrives, she noticed that her grandmother looked very strange, and then says stuff like, "What big eyes you have," or something. And then the wolf will say, "The better to blank cank with, my dear." And then when it goes to the teeth, that's when basically the wolf says, "The better to eat you with." So that's basically, how everything goes on. So At the point, the wolf jumps out the bed and eats her too, and then he falls asleep. But in Charles Perrault's version of the story, the first one to be published, the tale ends here. But however, in later versions, the story continually generally as it follows. So a woodcutter in the French version, but a hunter in the French version. But in the Brothers Grimm and traditional German versions of it, there is a hunter, unharmed, and they fill the wolf's body with heavy stones after releasing Little Riding Hood and her grandmother. But of course, the wolf wakes and attempts to flee, but the stones cause him to collapse and die. So in the Grimm's version, the wolf leaves the house to drink out of the well, but the stones in his stomach cause him to fall and drown. So sanitized versions of the story where the grandmother is locked in the closet instead of eaten, and some of Little Red Riding Hood saved by the lumberjack as the wolf advances of her, then rather gets eaten, where the woodcutter kills the wolf with his axe. So there's plenty of other versions that have done that. So of course it makes the clearest contrast between the safe world of the village and the dangers of the forest. So that's basically what this story is about, and especially it also warns about the dangers of not obeying one's mother, at least in the Grimm's version. So, now the history of other tales. So, the story displays many similarities to the classical Greece and Rome. The scholar Graham Anderson was comprised by the legend of encounter of Thanasis, in which every year a virgin girl was offered to man the spirit of the skin of a wolf who basically gets away with the girl. You could probably understand what that is. Then another year, a boxer comes along and sues the spirit and marries a girl, but it's offered as sacrifice. And there was also a number of stories encountered by Greek authors involving a woman, meant literally fire, and a man, somewhat meaning of wolf, and the Roman poets, basically where a male child is rescued. And of course, there's been other versions of the story. Now, we're going to say there's lots of other versions of the story that has been told, but why not I go ahead and get out of my way and tell you the earliest versions of Little Red Riding Hood? Because some of you guys, nowadays are probably wondering, what is the earliest version of the Little Red Riding Hood story? Well, if I hadn't already tell you, I'll tell you right now. So, the origins of Little Red Riding Hood story can be traced through several likely pre-17th century versions of various European countries. Some of these are significantly different from currently known Grimm's inspired version, was told by French peasants in the 10th century and recorded by the cathedral school master of Egbert Lidge. In Italy, Little Red Riding Hood was told by peasants in the 14th century, where a number of versions exist, including La Finta Nonna, the false grandmother, written along by Italo Cavallo, and then of course the Italian folk tales collection. It has been called the story of grandmother, which is possible that this is the early tale roots in the east of Asian tales, of course, Grandma Tiger. But of course, in these early varieties of the tale, do offer extended currently version in similar ways. The antagonist not always a wolf, but sometimes a werewolf, making these tales more relevant to werewolf trials. Similar to witch trials of the time, the wolf usually leaves the grandmother's food and flesh for the girl to eat, who unwillingly eats her own grandmother. Yeah, very disturbing though. You guys probably understand what that means. It's very disturbing. Like, that's one of the earliest versions of it. Yeah, very, 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 very disturbing right there. And of course, the wolf also asks her to remove her clothing and toss in the fire. In some versions, the wolf eats the girl after she gets in the bed with the wolf, and the story ends there. In others, she sees his disguise and tries to escape, complaining to her grandmother that she needs to, would not wish to do so on the bed, like go anywhere, but the wolf reluctantly lets her go and ties a piece of string so she would not get away. However, the girl slips the string over something and runs off, and in these stories she escapes with no help from any male or older female figure, instead using her own, in some versions, of help of a young boy who she runs into. Sometimes, although more rarely, the wolf Red Riding Hood is also non-existent. In other tellings of the story, the wolf chases later after Little Riding Hood escapes with the help of some laundry dresses, who spreads the sheet over and try to make an escape. When the wolf follows Red Riding Hood over the bridge, the sheet is released and the wolf drowns in the river. In another version, the wolf is pushed into the fire while he is preparing some food to be eaten by the girl. So yeah, those were very disturbing earlier versions. So I already talked about the Charles Perret version of the story, and I've already told, the Brothers Grimm version of the story, which those were disturbing. So I'm going to be explaining about the later versions. So numerous authors have rewritten or adapted this tale over the years. Andrew Land, a variant called The True History of Little Golden Hood, or the Red Fairy Book, he delivered it to the works, and of course, with that being said, he adapted his version of the story, and of course makes it better. So, apart from over for heart warning about not to talk to strangers, there's also many traditions of the fairy tale, most of them being sexual, and of course, it is really disturbing. So, with that being said, I can understand why this fairy tale is like one of the most messed up ones, because they have a lot of messed up stuff, but they do play a good plot in the story. And of course, with that being said, there were different versions of the wolf, and pardon me about that. I'm feeling so tired. So there's different versions where the wolf does some, different kind of stuff, and there was even versions where, where well, there's different versions of what the wolf did to Little Red Riding Hood, and etc. So, of course, the analysis of the tale may also include negative consciousness, like the term of abduction and other stuff like that. So, such tellings could bear some animal bridge kingdoms, such as Beauty and the Beast or the Frog Prince, where heroines tell the tale of what happened to them. So, of course, there were adaptations of the film. So, of course, they had a cartoon animated movie, Little Red Riding Hood, Red Hot Riding Hood. Oh my goodness. Like, that is just kind of like a recast of what happens. There was also Company by Wolves, and there was even other movies that have take adaptation of the movie. Of course, we do have Little Red Riding Hood from the horror movie from 2011, which is pretty awesome, and Hoodwinked, which is a pretty popular movie as well. That one was actually pretty interesting, although I wasn't really a big fan of it, but it was pretty good. And Little Red Riding Hood has been, adapted into many other films, and of course they made a lot more money with it. So, with that being said, they actually did a pretty good job with the story. So, there also did at least a Looney Tunes version of it called Little Red Riding Rabbit, featuring Bugs Bunny. Oh my goodness. And we also have Little Red Riding Hood was also parodied in Super Smash Bros. Show, Little Red Riding Hood featuring Princess Peach playing the role, and then King Koopa with the role of the Big Bad Wolf. There was other versions. There's even some TV shows that actually adapted adapt this. So it was actually very something that you could really see that a lot of this story has changed over the years just to make it more friendly, because the earliest version is like more disturbing and they wanted to make it more suitable for kids. So that's why they had to sit there and change the fairy tale over the years due to how disturbing it is. So I could definitely understand, why Little Red Riding Hood was pretty disturbing. And I'm sure most of us can really agree. Like, the earliest versions were disturbing, and they were pretty well done. Like, I could definitely say my favorite would have to be the Brothers Grimm one, even though it was dark and disturbing, but it was a pretty good concept. And same thing could be said for, some of the other versions, but I do like the kid-friendly ones, because I really grew up with the kid-friendly versions of it, so I'm sure most of you guys have. So, I'm guessing I'm gonna wrap up this review, because there's nothing really much I could just talk about it, because I just explained about the whole story. So, yeah. Anyways, with that being said, this is simply my own personal opinion on this fairy tale. What do I think of it? I actually found this fairy tale to be rather neat. It's very good informative to tell people not to talk to strangers, because you never know. You could get eaten like the whatever Riding Hood did with the big bad wolf, or at the very least, strangers could come around and snatch you, steal your stuff, or do nasty things, or God knows what. So, this is actually a good informative warning to people if they're going to be on their own. And this is a good informative for kids. When kids are being left on their own, parents need to tell their kids, do not do this. Because this is actually a very good lesson for kids. And if you guys have kids and you need something to tell them about why you shouldn't talk to strangers, I highly suggest you share this episode. Or at least share the Little Red Riding Hood story. Like, even if you, even though they're disturbing, just say they're pretty good stories. Even though yes, the story itself is disturbing, but it was pretty good. So, well, that being said, I like the fairy tale. It was actually my childhood when I was a kid. I did not know about the very disturbing dark version of it till I was like maybe 18 or 19. And man, that was very messed up. I'm definitely have to say, it was very messed up, all the versions. So, I'm going to sit here and say right now, what did you guys think about Little Red Riding Hood? Did you all enjoy it? Did you not? Also, what we have done personally to help make the fairy tale a lot better? Leave me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section down below. I'm the Queen of Lions. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. And if you happen to be brand new here on this channel, be sure to like, comment, subscribe because I make brand new videos every single day. Don't forget to ring the notification bell to when I upload so that you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, I'll be seeing you all in the next video. Peace out, everyone.